Telecom continue to rule the world. Uzi goes godlike.
This is what peak League of Legends looks like.
Wherever you are in the world, welcome back to MSI 2021 in scenic Reykjavik, Iceland. Pentanet, GG, and RNG are arriving at our arena for the second day of our Rumble stage. Both teams hungry for victory ahead of their matchup a little later today. Now, the LPL champions, they are still undefeated so far at MSI, and we're going to take an in-depth look at their run in today's countdown. Maybe Pentanet can do it. I know they're in our hearts, but can they also make it on the Rift? I'm Sjokz, joined by Ender and by Emily Rand. Hello, Emily. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
And we're also joined by Ender, or should I say the critic from Ratatouille?
Yeah, maybe. We'll be critiquing some gameplay today. We'll see how they do, how they score.
Man getting away with like wearing a cape on air. It's
what
No
is
capes.
this?
No capes.
No capes. Okay, let's see. So let's take a look at quick peek at our standings to give us a bit of an insight into what we saw yesterday. RNG and the Mad Lions both went 2-0 with C9 and Pentanet chilling here towards the bottom, Ender.
And it's just a heartbreaker of a day for C9 because they started off with a great match against RNG. They were behind, but they fought back brilliantly through team fights, and it falls apart with a base race backdoor at the end. Then this game against Mad Lions, it feels even worse because the game was just completely thrown at level 3 in the river. They sent it all in for the fight. Elyoya got 5 kills and an assist in what seemed like less than a minute, and from there, you can't judge anything from this game. It was just lost.
Emily, unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, I think this draft was obviously very risky. They were going to go for the double scuttle with the Rumble Kindred setup, but when you run a composition that, again, is this risky and has such a very like singular early game win condition, and then, you know, the execution is also risky and they didn't execute on it. I think they may have been fine if they backed off that second scuttle, but it's still a very risky draft to take into such an important matchup.
And even then, we saw in the mid lane with this Kindred pick, it still seems so dubious to me because you have Humanoid absolutely bodying Perkz in the mid lane, and while Humanoid is very talented, it should not be that one-sided between the two players. Perkz, the solo kill he got, it was because Humanoid was sprinting it down mid underneath the tower.
Yeah, and Emily, then the question is, does it flex? But like, should it flex, right? Do you even have to go for that flex?
I mean, so the Rumble jungle defender has logged on in me, but I'll back off of it a little bit in that if you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel like you have a composition to bring it out, then don't. Or they could have flexed it mid, despite the fact that obviously Kindred then has a lot of hiccups in the jungle. I just think there were a lot of ideas behind this composition, and I'm not trying to like rip it apart, but it was very risky, and the execution on it has to be perfect.
It does have to be perfect. It wasn't that, unfortunately. Mad Lions came out on top in that one, and they've already proven that they can take down PSG, who they are facing today. But the other opponent that is waiting for them is RNG.
And that's a little bit more of a tall task for them. I do think the Mad Lions have looked quite good. Elyoya in particular, the shining light for this team. And I think his creative pathing in the early game can try to replicate some of what Canyon was able to do against Wei in the early game between Damwon and RNG and get to an early lead.
Yeah, that creative pathing straight for that top scuttle crab. You really do love to see it.
Well, maybe not quite creative on that one.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course. We're quite impressed by Elyoya. Emily, what have you thought about Mad Lions in their first showing? At the Rumble stage,
I mean, yeah, I love Mad. I think that we've seen exactly the team that we kind of expected, all of their strengths and all of their weaknesses going into this entire tournament. My only question was actually of Elyoya and how well he'd be able to do on such a large stage. He's performed phenomenally well. He's actually impressed me more than almost any other jungler at this event. I think he's been performing insanely well, so I'm really, really looking forward to see what Mad bring today.
Yes, we'll see what they can do versus RNG, because RNG yesterday yesterday, they took down Damwon KIA. We were wondering how they would do after a pretty straightforward Group A, right? But immediately they opened up with a win versus a world champion.
Yeah, they got a really big win, and it wasn't even like they blew up in the game early or anything like that. No, Damwon got the controlled early game that they would like to, but in typical RNG fashion, the mid game punished some big mistakes out of Damwon. Positioning errors from Barrel, in particular Ghost. A lot of these picks transpired into a very quick end from RNG, where they were slightly behind to all of a sudden they've got a Baron and the game just instantly ends.
We'll be able to talk about Damwon a bit more after this. But first, while we have LPL expert Emily, and honestly, expert of every region, we're going to take a look at some of the RNG neighborhood tactics presented by State Farm as she follows me.
I know, let's go.
Let's go over to the telestrator. That is amazing.
Well.
Yeah, you made it. You know what? A for effort, really. So let's look at the replays, and we're going to talk specifically about what happened yesterday versus Cloud9. But we want to contextualize that a little bit, Emily, because this is actually not out of the ordinary for RNG in the LPL.
Yeah, so basically there was definitely a difference on my Twitter timeline in terms of people who watch the LPL regularly and then people who really only see LPL teams at international events, because everyone was like, oh, that was such a crazy backdoor. And then people who are used to watching RNG or LPL are like, yeah, we kind of have like one of these a week. And also we saw an incredibly similar setup in RNG's semifinal, or I believe it was round 4 match to get here against top esports, even with the exact same top lane matchup.
Exactly. That is what is the most interesting also about this. So this is the clip. I'm going to go ahead and circle the dragons here for you, because that is, of course, very interesting when you look at what RNG did after and how they capitalized on that.
Yeah, so there are a bunch of interviews coming out yesterday where Wei was like, okay, we knew what C9 were going to do, right? Because this game is very similar, where they know exactly what TES are going to go for. Top esports are looking to get this Elder Drake. They already have the 4 Drakes stacked, so they have Ocean Soul, despite the fact that they have that open top inhibitor where 369 is going to go and clear out those super minions. You can start running the clip now. Yep. So this is the setup, and RNG know exactly what they're going to try to do here. Basically, they decide that they cannot fight TES in a 5v5 because TES are typically going to win that, and their only recourse here, they think, is going to be the trade. So what they're going to do is just try to stop those backs. This is going to look familiar to anyone who watched yesterday's game. And then Khan and Udysof are going to come and hit the Nexus. Now, this is a remarkably risky play, right? If they don't pull it off, they lose. However, they arguably lose anyway, right? So your only options here are go for the win, and this is the only way you can get that win if you feel like this is the only way you can trade, which RNG do, or you kind of wait to slow lose, which RNG typically don't do. They're typically going to look to trade, and if they lose, but they already feel like they're in a position where they have to make a move in order to win.
I actually think that that's a bit different from what we saw versus Cloud9, because as you say, there were a lot of similarities as I prepare the clip here in terms of, yes, the Malphite coming out on the side of Cloud9 to go versus that Lucian coming out of Udysof specifically, but this wasn't necessarily an unwinnable game for RNG, and I think therein lies a bit of a difference.
Yeah, I feel like they did feel a lot more desperate in the top esports match for a lot of reasons. Again, that was game 5. If they lose, they're out. They're not even at this midseason invitational, right? So this is a game that is a single game in a round robin group stage, but additionally, they do have other options to get back into the game. I do think they just felt so confident. And again, their jungler Wei has given interviews about this where they're like, we know they were going to go for Baron because this is one of C9's only ways to get back into the game, right? Through 5v5 team fighting and through getting this Baron.
So I'm gonna roll it out.
Yeah,
for you.
We're gonna roll the play. This is very simple to anyone who watched it yesterday. Basically, C9 actually aced RNG prior to this. So they aced them like 0 for 5. And Udysof gonna go start pushing this inhib. Now RNG know that C9 are gonna go for the Baron. They call for this. They know exactly what's gonna happen. So they're like, okay, you know what? We're gonna do this again. We're just gonna base race it. All we have to do is have Wei and Ming stop the backs from C9, and we know we've got this. And again, like I love RNG's confidence to be able to go for these trades. And additionally, I do think that sometimes with North American teams, we see a lot of teams just always meet each other at the objective, right? Like always, if there's a neutral objective, we're going to 5v5 over it. We're going to decide when our 5v5s are based on neutrals. This happens all over the world, but I do think that one thing that C9 might be able to take away from this is perhaps more cross-map trading, because RNG did this so decisively, and you could tell they were not expecting that to happen.
No, and it is something that RNG do so masterfully, and is also in part why they made it here to MSI. So we'll see how they play out their games today. But first, after a difficult first day, Laure caught up with Khan to get his thoughts rather on the rest of Damwon's road here at the Rumble stage.
Khan, thank you so much for joining me. 1-1 for Damwon KIA so far in the Rumble stage. And some people have been saying that you haven't performed to the expectations maybe, but the other people who are used to seeing you in the LCK tend to say that you often need this one team fight after the early game to just get back on tracks. What is your take on that when you compare it to the performance you had at MSI so far?
일단 아무래도 이제 패치 내용이 이전과는 많이 바뀌었기 때문에 이제 그에 관해서 일단 해석에 관해서도 되게 차이점이 있었어요. 그래서 일단 그런 쪽에서도 맞추고 일단 저희 컨디션이 다 그러니까 이제 몸 컨디션 말고 게임 컨디션이 아직 완전히 다 좋은 게 아니다 보니까 이제 또 그쪽에 있어서도 애로 사항이 생겼던 것 같고 그래서 좀 원래 저희가 추구하던 게임과는 살짝 방향이 다르게 흘러가고 있지만은 뭐 결과적으로 일단 이길 수 있는 팀이 되기 위해서 일단 계속 많이 연구하고 더 열심히 해야 될 것 같아요.
So first off, I think we have gone through a lot of different changes after this new patch, and also we were having a bit of a different point of views for how we playing this game. So we needed some time to find one answer. And in addition to that, I think our form was not at the best level. So I think we did have some hard time. But in order to become a winning team, I think we have to go through a lot more experiments and try harder.
Candid interview there from Khan yesterday, and we also caught Ashley Kang's interview with Ghost, where he was expressing kind of similar concerns and more in terms of the communication issues. That's a rough word to use, of course. They are still the world champions, and we're sure they'll get back on their feet. But it is an interesting look into what may not have worked out perfectly for Damwon.
Yeah, and it's surprising because I feel like you don't also hear a lot of these things, especially from teams of regions that aren't like EUNA, where you're constantly getting content from them and hearing them talk about their struggles. You see them at their best at international events, so usually things aren't going wrong. And I think we saw some examples, even in the gameplay from Damwon, where there could be miscommunication, like Beryl overstepping, going for engage as the rest of his team isn't behind him. There were these missteps, especially in their game versus RNG, where you could definitely go, oh yeah, I see exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, and that is a bit puzzling to me, Emily, because this is a team that went from strength to strength, right, when we last saw them in the playoffs in the LCK, so you don't think that this is going to happen, but it is something that happens to every team and is not necessarily reason for concern, I assume.
Yeah, so I'm also not super concerned for Damwon. I do think that they can shore up a lot of these communication issues that they're talking about. I like Damwon a lot, and one of the reasons is because in interviews, they actually have been pretty forthcoming whenever they do have communication issues or whenever they feel like they're not playing up to their own standard, right? So I always really appreciate hearing from them, and I also think that a lot of Damwon's strengths have still been on display where they are really good at punishing opponents' mistakes. And now it's about mitigating the mistakes that they are making. Maybe, Ender mentioned a few things about Beryl. Beryl has done some of these more high-risk plays and engages in LCK as well. And teams just have not been able to punish it as well as some of the teams here at MSI. So I actually think that, they're still going to make it out of Rumble. They're going to be an incredibly formidable team in a best-of-5 because I do think they adjust over a best-of-5 series incredibly well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them continue to improve because I don't have a ton of concern about Damwon considering any weaknesses they're showing here are ones that were already apparent when they were in LCK.
We'll see how that evolves. No man overboard yet, but Damwon, of course, still keeping their heads high after their loss yesterday to RNG, but that royal roster remains undefeated here at MSI. So it does beg the question, which team could rise up and end RNG's run? First up, that means we have to talk about what has been going so well for RNG. Yesterday, they had, as we already discussed, this really interesting game versus C9, but also the opening win versus Damwon.
And honestly, RNG are undefeated, but they are not infallible. And I think we've seen that a couple times in this tournament. I don't think there's a lot you can pull from the group stage as far as how good or bad RNG are. Obviously, these games against C9 and Damwon looked pretty close overall. And I think in the C9 game in particular, you know, they were winning for the majority of it, but they were getting outscaled. They made some decisive calls that they were able to come away with the win by sprinting it down into the base. But I do think there are areas for teams to punish them. We've seen them in Damwon's early game against them as well. And this is what if I want you to take anything away from this, it's yes, RNG are one of the best teams here. Yes, they may even be favorites to win the tournament, but they are not leagues ahead of the competition. I still think it is quite close between them, Damwon, potentially the Mad Lions today.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because Emily and I just looked at that replay where they just always look for an opportunity. And obviously, if the enemy team is making a couple of mistakes, then those opportunities are easier to find. Do you agree with Ender that they are far from infallible?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, RNG weren't even like the team that people expected to make it here, I guess. That was FPX. I think RNG have shown tremendous growth, actually, through their LPL playoff run. And then even here, they've actually been a lot more bombastic and explosive early than I thought they were going to be. In the LPL, comparatively, they were a slower-paced team. And by that, I mean they still would have had, you know, some shorter games, I think, than like all of LCK, or like a higher combined kills per minute than all of LCK. Or like LPL is such a weird region to compare to other regions, right? But when we see RNG making mistakes, I think they do make some mistakes early. They can overextend or play a little bit disrespectfully. And I think that's where a team like Mad actually could end up beating RNG. The big thing for Mad, if they want to pull it off, though, is that they're going to have to snowball through mid-game, and that is where I see some of Mad's mistakes in terms of the same cross-map trades that RNG is so strong at. That's where Mad maybe tends to falter, maybe tends to fight when they don't necessarily really want to. So they'd have to shore up that. But if they get a huge early snowball and then shore up mid-game issues, I could see Mad Lions taking out RNG.
Yeah, and if the mid-game isn't necessarily working that great for Mad Lions, I think the mid lane has been at this tournament. I think Humanoid, over the course of the year, even has been stepping up on these very aggressive mid-lane picks. The Lucian is one that comes to mind, a big pick in a game between these two teams, in a series between these two teams. And I think specifically, if you're trying to attack RNG, if you are the Mad Lions, it's through the mid lane and it's through the jungle. I think Crine has been a bit of a weak point, you know, in the laning phase, does not get attention really at all from his team. And we saw yesterday too how Canyon was able to spot out Wei in the early jungle, set up for an early kill. I think Elyoya is the type of jungler that can do similar things, and by controlling mid jungle, you can then have a huge influence over the rest of the map and try to break open the early game.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, this man also has experience with Splice in the group stage versus FPX, right? They took a game off them, so
every win counts.
Every win counts, but no, indeed, it is very good that he's now paired up with this jungler who is facilitating what he can do for the team. This could be an option. Maybe Mad Lions will be the first team to take down RNG. But I feel like even though Damwon wasn't able to win versus them yesterday, Emily, it does seem like they are in pole position when they meet them again to take them down the next time.
Yeah. Like Ender mentioned, I really loved how they tracked Wei early, because Wei has been such a strong performing jungler at this event. I also think that a lot of Damwon's strengths in their late game in terms of how they do punish teams when they maybe go for some of these riskier cross-map trades like RNG will decisively do. If they make a mistake on that, Damwon is the exact team that's just going to swoop in and punish their opponents for something like that. So I do think that Damwon are actually in a good spot to take down RNG, especially in a single game, if they're able to capitalize on any mistakes that RNG make in the mid game.
Yeah, decisiveness rather, and confidence is the name of the game. And confidence, it's very important, but sometimes it will come back to haunt you. Let's take a look at some quotes that backfired in That Didn't Age Well, one of our favorite segments here in Europe. First up, Perks said he would turn the Mad Lions into sad kittens. Ooh. But unfortunately, sad kittens also have a taste for crab cake.
I like it. I like it a lot. You know what? Honestly, the banter between Carzzy and Perks It was not the most clever banter I've ever seen. It was not the most violent banter I've ever seen. It was very cute, and honestly, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
These guys obviously know mouse. They like each other a lot, but I want that to continue because it's like goofy banter that you can't help but love.
It was nice, and we love that they do it. Unfortunately, it was only Carzzy that could celebrate in the end. Let's check it out.
I'm going. Let's go.
Dive.
Yes!
Woo! We diving. Nice.
Yeah, they win this one.
Look, I'm glad that we saved, you know, the NA fans out there, C9 fans out there from seeing the Scuttle
The
Crab
Scuttle
fight
Crab again,
Like,
yeah.
Getting dove on your fountain, not much better, but you don't want to see another crab fight.
Well, on topic, though, of that game yesterday, Quickshot and Ender being the only on-air talent from the LEC to predict a Cloud9 win over the Mad Lions.
I'm just trying to make sure they...
I know that you were
nice
planning
to
on
me.
going to LA, but what is this? How do you explain this?
I thought they would have a chance. Mad Lions were super inconsistent. I thought C9 were going to show up, and I didn't think they'd walk into the river again, guys.
Yeah. I mean, Emily, I think I speak for everyone where predictions are like one of the most annoying parts of our job because you can't win.
True. Yeah. I hate predictions.
I understand, because like you always have a reason to hate on someone. No, it's kind of fun. Finally, though, Pentanet made history as the first Oceanic team to make it past the opening stage. However, their choice of team anthem for MSI was not the right fit for the occasion.
I go by Rusty. The Oceanic representatives for MSI are Pentanet.gg, and the song they have chosen is Hold On We're Going Home by Drake.
Yeah, I think this is a positive that didn't age well, Emily. It's a,
Yeah,
it
this
didn't
is a
age
very
well.
wholesome one. Yeah,
Exactly.
like it didn't age well because you made it to Rumble stage. Congratulations,
Love it.
Pentanet.
All our love for Pentanet. Now, Pentanet, they're not leaving Iceland, or should I say Iceland? Iceland just
Sure.
yet. And lucky for them, because they get to enjoy even more of what the beautiful country has to offer. That is right. You've waited for it. It is time for the Icelandic fun fact of the day. And it features a pretty unique piece of info. In Iceland, it is common for babies to be left outside for a nap, regardless of the temperature outdoors. Now, it isn't uncommon even for restaurants, businesses to have lines of babies outdoors just napping as their parents go about their tasks. So, in keeping up with the spirit of Iceland, Ender, if you wouldn't mind stepping outside to take a nap so that the parents,
Wait a second, no!
the adults can take care of business.
That's just toxic.
All right.
Oh.
Enjoy your nap.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm falling apart.
Well, now that the baby is back where he belongs, it is time to take a look at today's schedule. We've got quite a few exciting matchups ahead, whether it be Cloud9 Damwon or the battle between the land and the sky, because Mad Lions take on PSG. Talon, Emily, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, Mad Lions RNG, right?
Yeah.
That has to be, that is the headlining matchup for today, I think, in my opinion. Obviously, there are two big matches for C9 against Damwon KIA and PSG Talon, but the matchup I'm looking forward to the most is RNG versus Mad Lions for all of the reasons that we already said.
And I follow you as well in terms of C9. Obviously, a bad start, but I'm sure they can get a win today and maybe even beat Damwon again. First up on the docket, though, is Pentanet.gg taking on the Giants of RNG again. And we were lucky enough to check in with their coach, Udysof, to hear more about his team's performance here at MSI.
Udysof, thank you for joining me. I'm glad that I can finally have an interview with the most stylish coach at MSI. How has this experience been for you?
Well, thank you very much for calling me the most stylish coach, but I got to put some respect on my boy Sheepy from UOL as well. Don't forget him, but he's no longer with us at the Rumble stage, but thank you very much. And the experience for me has been out of this world. I'm not going to lie, coming into this tournament, you got to set your expectations a little bit realistically, and being an Oceanic team coming to MSI where they send the best teams from every single region, you can't expect to make it too far as an Oceanic region. So to come this far and to allow my team to represent themselves has been surreal.
Yeah, and actually you're the first team from Oceania who managed to get out of group stage and advance to the later stages of the competition. What does it mean for you and the LCO to achieve this and make this goal?
I think for myself personally, it just showcases a belief that myself and a previous coach that I had back in the day when I was actually competing as a player that a good environment can actually culminate in success. And for us, a good environment has culminated into the greatest success we've ever achieved for OCE. And back in the day, a lot of teams were dominated by toxicity, anger, a lot of negative emotions. And to see a team like ours succeed, that's all friends, all smiling, always having a good time, it's very refreshing. And it's nice to me to see that that type of team can succeed on the world stage and be competitive, or, you know, competitive for everyone, especially in OCE.
Yeah, competitive and also spreading good vibes, which is what I love the most about this team, honestly. And I saw a tweet from Charlie a couple of days ago. He was jokingly salty about the fact that RNG have a full staff on site with masseuse and analyst and everything, and he has to work remotely. How has it been for him and you?
Well, Charlie working remotely is pretty rough, honestly.
Yeah.
I actually joined Pentanet towards the end of the season. I actually wasn't a part of Pentanet until we came to MSI. So I'm very fresh joining the team. I've known all the players. I've played as a player with Decoy and up against all the other boys on the team before. So I'm actually transitioning into a coaching role this year.
Wow.
And as I'm joining MSI, so my biggest role was, one, I understand the players and get to know how they feel, and I draft for the players. Charlie, he's a traditional coach. He knows how to draft like a coach does. He knows the ins and outs, but I'm here to make sure the players are comfortable, have a good time, and I guess be a little bit more relatable to them.
All right. Well, yeah, when we see the camps from the player, it looks like everyone is having a good time. Now, it may not be the experience you wanted at MSI so far when it comes to the results, but what are going to be the goals for the rest of the tournament for you?
Well, the remaining goals is today we're versing RNG and Damwon, so it's pretty free games. You've seen us verse RNG, but to be honest, I've been kind of sandbagging drafts the games recently. Like, do you really think I'm going to put Pabu on Morgana as being serious? No, it's a joke. Of course I'm going to put Pabu on carries, put him on Kindred, put him on Graves, put him on Nidalee, something that's actually going to defeat RNG and actually have some fun. Like, listen, we're all about the socials here. We're having a good time, but now it's time to take it seriously and actually beat Damwon and RNG very easily like we do in scrims.
Easily. Wow. Now, that's what I want to hear. Last question for you, though. Why the sunglasses?
The sunglasses, well, as I said, we're all about good vibes over here at PGG and sending it. So I put the shades on. I block out our opponents. We're just focused on having a good time. I was going to say something like real nerdy, but hey, it's real good out here. We're having a good time. Wear some shades. Enjoy the PGG, boys. And that's all I got to say. Just have some fun. And that's what the shades are all about, having some fun.
Just have some fun and keep on rocking that outfit, by the way. It's amazing. And thank you, Udysof, for the interview. And best of luck today against RNG. Actually, best of luck to them because you're going to smash them.
Exactly. Best of luck to you, RNG. Best of luck to you, Damwon. And thank you for the interview. I really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. And back to you, Sjokz.
Thank you. I love everything about this team. I love this interview. It's really great. And I think for us also, it's difficult to talk about teams that are clearly a very big underdog in these situations. You know, Pentanet now making it to the next stage, which is fantastic. But now obviously it's very hard for them to get a win. But they're making it so easy for us, Emily, because they are so positive. And I do think there's some interesting things to take away from that interview, saying a good atmosphere is almost the most important thing in a team environment.
Look at Pabu with the brand representation
on point
there. It's pretty great. Royal never give us a free win. Nice. I mean, I love Pentanet. They're just so fun. Obviously, they're kind of staring across at RNG and being like, oh, we have to face you again after facing them in groups. But you know, oh, Duo for Pain, nice trying to get the Brazil socials involved as
exactly.
well.
Smart. Just very smart team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure seeing them play. I do hope they get that. I mean, they have to get one upset. I don't think they walk out of here without an upset.
You know what? I'm all for it. And honestly, the style both in and off the Rift too. Because obviously, you know, you got the hair, you got the sunglasses, you got everything. But on the Rift too, they've got the insane pocket picks, right? You know, the Zed in the mid lane, the Kiana, and all this individual flair that I think does give them a shot to really surprise opponents. Like it's already happened in the group stage. And I just want to keep seeing what the next trick up their sleeve is, because every day, and you heard the coach, he's just here to make sure the players have fun. Yeah. So if they come in and they're like, yeah, you know, Heimerdinger, I think he might be a pretty good jungler, lock that shit in, give it to me.
Wow, you even swore live on air because you're so excited about the boys from Down Under. Love it. Okay, well, obviously it is really hard to, I think also, Emily, talk about which possible draft we're going to see. RNG with being so secure, but on the other hand, this is only the start of the Rumble stage, right? So I don't think we're going to see them completely try something new, even though they know that Pentanet isn't the most formidable of opponents that they're going to face in this Rumble stage.
Yeah, I mean, we might see. I know we saw Damwon try out that Diana Yasuo combination after they were already in a good position to qualify previously. So I wouldn't be surprised if RNG picks something like that, where maybe they want to test it out. On Pentanet's side, I think if you're talking about any team going up against a very formidable, seemingly insurmountable opponent, what you have to look at are their level 1s. So like, what are they going to bring in draft, and what kind of shenanigans can they get up to at level 1 to startle RNG enough to maybe snowball off of that? But yeah, like going into this stage, I was really looking forward to seeing Pentanet's drafts and then also their level 1s, because that's really where they have the most power to surprise opponents. And I think when and if they do take a win off of someone, it's going to be because of that. It's going to be because they surprise them in draft and then have a really good plan at level 1 to execute on.
And if we can believe Udysof, that's exactly what's going to happen in this game. So in the great tradition of Pentanet, we're sending it to our opening video and day 3 of the Rumble stage. 2, actually.
RNG is not necessarily a typical LPL team. They don't need early aggression, right? They don't need to flip it on a dive on level 3.
They don't need to beat you in a 5v5. They'll outthink you. RNG, take the game.
In my opinion, they're by far the best team at this tournament. I think Damwon can ramp up to be the best, but RNG right now is the best.
Gala is right behind him and will rain the plasma down on the Tristana.
目前来看，我觉得 RNG 是最好的队伍之一。
RNG will take down the world champions in game 1 of the Rumble stage.
그냥 픽대로 그냥 안 나와서 그냥 저희가 좀 초반에 유리하게 가져갈 수 있는 부분이 좀 많았었는데 좀 못 살려서 좀 패배한 것 같고.
So RNG are definitely looking like the toughest opponent at the moment, but I think we are quite a good match against them, so I'm expecting a good game.
It's been a long time since we've had an EU versus NA battle.
It means a lot for Europe and NA, since it's good for the memes and good for the media. But otherwise, for us as players, I don't feel any pressure, and I don't think anyone from our team did.
Mad Lions turned it into a massive, massive win. They're taking their time on this one because, you know, in NA versus EU, it's always a little personal.
For the Mad Lions game, it sucks to be stumped. One bad fight in early game, a 3-3 that went wrong, just lost the whole game. It hurts your momentum and your confidence, but not something we can't recover from.
I think that a lot of teams are going to stand up and recognize this team has come to play.
我们将会在这个 Rumble Stage 拿下不败之姿，赢得胜利。我觉得我们已经准备好了，狮子可能要被我们打回老家了。
We were just going in with confidence and no stress.
我们现在状态也是挺好的嘛，然后觉得我们得到中期的时候，我们运营和团队都是打得很好的，就是可以。
Us beating PSG and PG is an absolute must.